Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to Finland for the first time in absolutely ages. As I've told you before, Finnish craft beer is a little bit like gold dust. You're not going to come across it very often. In fact, probably the only real way to get this is actually if you go to Finland itself. But I got very lucky and managed to find another Finnish beer through Systembolaget here in Sweden. I wish we got them more regularly, to be honest, because the Finnish beers I have managed to try have always been really quite nice. So hopefully this is another one that follows in that same vein. For this review then, we are going to go to Finnish Lapland in the very north of the country. We're going to go to a little place called Tornio, and this brewery comes from literally right next to the Finland-Sweden border. So we're having a taste of my first beer from Tornion Panimo. And this one comes from their North Series, the Arctic New England IPA, coming in at 5.5% ABV. So yeah, this will be my very first Finnish New England IPA, but I know there's a lot of new Finnish breweries kind of starting off and things like that now. It seems that the laws have been changed a little bit, so you are seeing more and more Finnish craft breweries popping up. So hopefully this is the start of the Finnish beers getting out there a little bit more. As I say, the quality of Finnish beer in my experience is very, very good, and it's a bit of a shame that it's not more widely appreciated across Europe and things like that, I guess you could say. But definitely cool to return to Finland after quite a long time, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. You know, the main problem I've heard that the Finnish craft beer scene has had over the last few years is that the alcohol laws are even more restrictive there than they are here in Sweden and up in Norway, and of course that kind of extends to starting your own brewery. So there's really heavy taxes. It was very difficult to actually just circumvent the laws to start up your own brewery in the first place. If you did get a brewery started up, your beer was taxed very highly, and it was actually the case that for Finns it was cheaper to buy the American imported craft beers than it was to buy the local Finnish brewed ones. And of course when you're just starting up a little brewery, you're going to have issues with consistency and things like that as well. But as I mentioned, the beers that I managed to try from Finland, the Plevnen Siperia, the Saku Prickmästar, what else have I had? The Winter Warmer from Malmgården Panimo. You've got the more widely produced, largely produced Sinebrychov Baltic Porter as well. You know, those are all very, very good beers. But there's a massive homebrew culture up in Finland, and that's kind of spurring a lot of the growth that you're seeing up there now. So hopefully the new laws and the relaxation of the laws that's happened over the last few years continues to benefit them, and we see more Finnish beer getting out there, of course. I think it's exciting times for the craft beer scene in Finland. I really want to go up there, and it'd be great to go up to one of the beer festivals and check out some of the Finnish craft beer, of course. So we'll need to see about doing that in the next year or so. So we'll see how we get on with that. But yeah, since this is a Finnish review as well, a huge shout out to Harry at Reittausblogi and also Jako at Jaskankaljat, two Finnish bloggers that I was with in the Czech Republic. They were doing, you know, we were over there visiting Pilsner Urquell, which was great. We had a great time. We drank far too much Pilsner Urquell, and we had some really, really great Czech food actually. That was an awesome weekend to go over there and have a little look around the factory and get toured around and things like that. I had a great time with Harry and Jako, as well as some as the Czech guys from the agency that were showing us around. That was an awesome weekend, and who knows, maybe we'll get to do that again at some point in the fairly near future. But I'm sure I'll meet up with Harry and Jako at some point. I've not chatted to them for quite a wee while actually, but we'll need to arrange something when I do make it to Finland, hopefully for a beer festival, like I say. But yeah, let's get on and actually get on with the review then. Talking about Finland's always quite interesting. Lovely people and a great country, but crazy language, I have to say. But yeah, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done, that I will do in the future rather, from Tornion Panimo. Very first time I'm encountering one of their beers. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for the Finnish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support you show the channel is hugely appreciated. In particular, if you are watching from Finland, do let me know some of the brewery names that I can keep an eye out for. and I'll put the link to Harry and Jako's blogs down there as well in case you haven't heard of those. But yeah, to tell you a little bit about Tornion Panimo then, on to my brewery notes. So as I mentioned earlier, Tornion Panimo are based in Tornio, which is right on the border, on the Swedish-Finnish border in Finnish Lapland. So this brewery is on the former production site of Lapland, who are probably the most famous Finnish beer brand actually. If you translate it into English, it means Lappish Gold, although this name wasn't adopted for their beer until 1963. But Lapland later became part of Hartwall in 1980, and eventually they ended up under the ownership of Heineken, who made the decision to close down the brewery in Tornio and move production to Lahti, apparently much to the disgust of a lot of people in Finland. But at this time the Tornion brewery was brewing around 20 million litres of beer per year. I think it was 2010 was the last time they were actually producing up beer. But originally the buildings on this brewery site were to be demolished, but then it was bought by Minkirto Meikala, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and eventually in 2016 a crowdfunding campaign was organised to raise funds to renovate the buildings, and this raised over €1 million. So the parent company of this brewery is called Sangen, and they installed Kai Kustiander as the new head of the brewery. He runs the business side of things, and they started production in September of 2016, and the beers were in the alcohol stores, their equivalent of Systembolaget, the state-owned alcohol stores. They were in the stores there by November of 2016. But further investments were made in the brewing equipment, around €1.5 million, and by 2017 they'd reached a yearly capacity of over 2 million litres. In February of 2018 they also opened up a brewery shop on site, which came as a result of the relaxation of the laws I was talking about, and they have a distillery now as well, which produces a myriad, I guess, of different spirits. But the brewery apparently have two lines of products. They've got the North Series and the Arctic Series, and as of November 2019 they've produced around 50 different types of beer according to Untappd. So yeah, one of the larger by volume craft breweries from what I understand in Finland. And the story of this one, I have to say, reminds me quite a bit of Amundsen up in Norway, you know. Although Amundsen did start off as a brew pub, and then more investors came in and sort of propelled it to a kind of larger business, if you like. But yeah, the story of this one, like a property company sort of coming in and investing and getting the brewery off the ground, it does remind me quite a bit of the Amundsen story. So maybe this is going to be one of the Finnish breweries that gets out there a little bit more compared to some of the other ones. So if you're watching from further afield than Finland or Scandinavia, you can definitely, maybe you'll be able to find some of these beers actually. Do let me know where in the world you're drinking this one. As I said, I was very lucky to find this beer through Systembolaget. The Finnish beers are pretty much like gold dust unless you're in Finland itself. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Tornion Panimo for the moment. Hopefully we can return to these guys in the future. Like I said, if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all the different things that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So I'll let you just have a little look at the artwork before we open this up. There you can see at the top, there is the Tornion Panimo symbol, which is kind of cool. You can see the artwork on this one is pretty nice as well. And as I said earlier, you know, the Finnish language is just mental. You know, the Finnish language is part of the Uric family, which is along with Estonian and Hungarian for some weird reason. But from what I understand, Finnish is one of the most complex languages in terms of like grammatical cases and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's one that I will be avoiding learning, to be honest. I mean, the Finns all speak good English, speak very good English anyway, and quite a few of them can speak Swedish as well, which I can speak fairly well too. But yeah, I like this as well. They do say a product of Finland on the side there. I like it when they put the country's flags on these things, which are kind of cool. But you can see Tornion Panimo is also on the bottle cap there, and I will be adding this one to my collection. So yeah, pretty cool. It doesn't say on the side what hops and things like that are in this one, but yeah, it should be really quite nice. Panimo, of course, is Finnish for brewery. That's about, you know, along with Olut, Kipis, Perkele, and things like that. Those are probably about the only Finnish words that I know. Apart from, you know, I watched the Dudesons when I was younger, so you know, you learn a few things from them. But let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. As you can see, nice little bit of smoke on the opening, and we'll get this guy out and into the glass. And I suspect from the aroma here, I've got a feeling that this beer could be, you know, a sort of classic Citra Simcoe type New England IPA. You can see the head on this one has gone a little bit crazy. But we can leave it to relax for a moment, and we could just have a little look at the colour of the beer and things like that. So if I put the light through this one, it's a bit of an orange. It's leaning more towards the yellow end of the spectrum, but it is more. It does have a little bit of a tint of orange to it. There's a solid, as you can see, there was more than 2 fingers of quite a bumpy, perfect white head on this actually. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones coming up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall, it does look pretty much what you would expect, or as you would expect from a New England IPA. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a degree of haze to this beer. It's definitely not the murkiest one that you're going to come across, or the gloopiest, or whatever adjective you decide is good for a New England IPA, but it does look the part. It doesn't look overly surprising when you consider what style it is. So let's get the last of it in, and we'll have a little look at the aroma then. Look at that. Don't know why the carbonation on this one is going so crazy, but that looks pretty cool. So yeah, let's have a look at this aroma then and see how we go. And we can't sugar it up too much, but you still get quite a lot of aroma out the head, I always find. So yeah. So straight away with this one, as I said, my impression was that it had you know, sort of Citra and Simcoe in it, and you've got a good little bit of passion fruit in there. You've got some juicy mangoes and things like that, and there's a few other little complexities, you know, like lychee, gooseberries and things like that. And I mean, those little complexities tend to come from the Citra hop. The Simcoe for me is a very sort of straight up passion fruity hop, and it's kind of a more milky passion fruity note as well actually. The yeast in this one, I think, could be like this beer can be, as I've spoken about with the New England IPAs, there's a few different kind of sort of flavour spectrums that you can have with these beers. They're either very kind of nice and smooth and sweet and creamy. They can also have a good little bit of a kind of wheaty pungency to them, like they can have a little bit of bite, but they can also be quite farmhousey. And in terms of the aroma with this one, I think this one comes across as quite sort of farmhousey. So I think, and of course the sort of brewery you want to refer back to with that is Alchemist. Their beers are very, very farmhousey. The Treehouse ones are more kind of sweet and smooth, and the Trillium ones are more sort of bitey with the wheat and the hops and things like that. I've not managed to try Hill Farmstead before, but yeah, it could be kind of interesting. This one to me definitely comes across as more sort of farmhousey. You've got a little bit of that sort of grainy, rusticy type note coming out of the malt base here. You can smell a little bit of the smoothness from the wheat. There's a little bit of the kind of oaty creaminess in there as well. So definitely white bready and oaty notes in this beer. A little bit of biscuit, and you've also got that kind of grainy base to the beer too, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I like how that goes together. I mean, yeah, in terms of the green side of the hops as well, there's a little bit of earthiness to this one, but mainly it's quite floral and a little bit grassy as well, and you'd expect that from Citra or Simcoe. I suspect it's one of the two, or if not both of them, that are in here. But yeah, in terms of the aroma, this one comes across as quite a sort of farmhousey leaning New England IPA. It's not the most pungent aroma that you're going to come across from this style, but it does come across pretty nicely. And I mean, at 5.5%, this one is starting to verge into paleo category rather than or territory rather, as opposed to IPA. I mean, I would always say the IPA has to be above, you know, sort of 6.5. So this one, maybe it has to be considered as more of a New England Paleo rather than an IPA. But we'll have a taste of it and see how we get on. So let's see how we get on with this beer then. This one is the Arctic New England IPA from the North Series at Tornion Panimo in Tornio in Finnish Lapland. Cool to return to Finland after quite a long time. Big shout out to Harry and Jaakko once again. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, skål, keepies. Yeah, I think there's this beer I think obviously is bottle conditions, just going from the way the head was. The flavour's quite nice of this, but it is just a little touch over-carbonated, or it could have just been agitated when it's been transported right enough. But yeah, there's a little bit of a kind of excitement to this beer, we should say. But yeah, to me, this one definitely comes across as more of sort of New England pale ale, if you like, as opposed to being a bigger IPA or even double IPA. It kind of, you know, the New England IPAs, it depends what you want. I have to admit, I'm still drawn between whether I prefer the New Englands or the West Coast IPAs. I think the West Coast IPAs, you can do a bit more things with them. You can put different malt bases and stuff like that. It's a bit more of a diverse style, I think, than the New England ones in some ways, but in some other ways not. But yeah, this one to me, it comes across as more of a sort of pale ale type New England beer rather than an IPA. It's not quite thick enough to be an IPA in my mind. But that said, the flavour to this one is pretty nice actually. This is a sort of quite good gateway beer almost. This is a good beer for someone who would normally, you know, who would be looking to get more into craft beer. It's not the most kind of punchy, forthright New England IPA that you're going to come across, or pale ale I guess I should say, but it does the thing that you style on. It's a solid example of the style. So, you know, thumbs up to Tornion Panimo for this one. It's cool. As I say, it's definitely cool to you know, try different beers from Finland. But if these guys are one of the larger by volume producers, you know, these beers are going to be appearing more and more in places, and people will think to try them. So this is a good kind of introduction to the sort of New England style of beers, a good sort of gateway New England pale ale, if you like. Yeah. So let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. So middle of your palate, you're going to feel a little bit of pale malt there. That blankets the middle of the tongue. The further that you go into the aftertaste, the wheaty side of this beer is going to pushes its way out a little bit more, and the further you come into that aftertaste as well, you can feel a little bit of that kind of pungency from the wheat. If you move right into the centre of your tongue, you've got a little bit of a kind of circle there. There's some creamy sort of oaty notes to this beer as well, and then in the very centre of the palate you've got a little bit of kind of biscuity note in there too, which is quite nice. The malt base in this one, it does, as I say, it does everything you would expect, and it's interesting too because the sort of yeasty notes, the sort of farmhousey quality that I was getting out of this beer, that does come across as a little bit of a subtlety. I mean, if you go to the front kind of corners of your palate and move in a little bit, you might get a little bit of a kind of woody undertone, but it's that farmhousey note in this beer is a lot less pronounced in the flavour than I was suspecting it would be based on the aroma. So that's a kind of interesting point to make on this one. But the malt base is very, very straight up. It's nice and smooth, and I mean, that's kind of what you would expect from a pale ale. It's nice and smooth, but it does have a degree of crispness to it. If you go to the back of your tongue, I think there might be a little touch of a Pilsner malt in here to, you know, to help kind of crispen up this beer a little bit, actually. Yeah, that's a solid beer, actually. I really like this one. As I say, in terms of a gateway beer, if you consider it for what it is pretty damn solid, actually. You know, this is one of these ones, that as a supermarket beer, for example, this would be a good one to come across there, and it's one that you would kind of take to the beach and drink a few of on a nice kind of summer's day. Actually, you just want a light, very sessionable thing. So that's, in that regard, I think it's pretty good, actually. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, that just smoothens out a little bit. You get a little touch of floral aromaticity, and then round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy in my mind. So on the fruity side of things then, this is where the beer's a little bit interesting, I think. It starts off, it comes in and it's quite juicy, and then it just kind of rolls out a little bit. The fruitiness becomes a little bit wetter, and then the further into the aftertaste you go, it just becomes a little bit drier. So at the back of, as I always say, the fruity esters come out in that little oily bubble behind the front curve of your tongue, and for me, if you go to the back of that oily bubble, you've got a little bit of a kind of darker grapefruity, passion fruity note in there. As you move further forward, it kind of evolves to be more mango-y, and the darker side of it kind of fades away a little bit, and then right on the very tip of your tongue you're getting a little touch of a kind of limey character and things, which is interesting, I think. So yeah, it's cool to see how that all kind of fits in together. Yeah. As I say, I like this as a pale ale. If you consider it as a sessionable New England pale ale, I think this one is pretty well done, actually. So it's a good sort of gateway beer for people looking to try something a bit more adventurous, actually. It does everything you would want from a New England sort of perspective. The only thing I would pick it up on is that it says it's an IPA. I would argue that this is a pale ale. I mean, at 5.5%, you know, it's a bit light to be an IPA. I think you've really got to be about 6.5 to claim you're an IPA. So that's the only thing I would pick this one up on, really. In terms of the mouthfeel then, it's a fairly light-bodied beer, this one. It's at the top end of light-bodied. The carbonation in this particular bottle is a little bit crazy. I'm not sure if it was because it was like bottle conditioned or whatever, but they need to, either it's been agitated or they need to sort out their carbonation on that, but we can let them away with that. You sometimes get the same with the Belgian beers, right enough. The mouthfeel overall is fairly smooth. And a little bit kind of a little bit wet as well, actually. The thing is, when you go further north in countries like Finland, Sweden and so on, you're always going to get really nice and quite clean water. In terms of IBUs and things, I think we're only talking about 25 IBUs out of this beer at most. The malt base, as I say, quite smooth. It does have a little degree of sweetness to it, but mainly quite a smooth malt base, and you've got some nice juicy fruity qualities in this one as well. So I mean, overall, this is a really nice example of a New England pale ale, and it's a good sort of gateway beer, this one, a nice sort of summer session New England pale ale, to be honest with you. I disagree with that it's a New England IPA, but if you consider it as a sessionable kind of gateway beer, I think it's a pretty decent example. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This is another good quality Finnish beer, I have to say. Not probably nowhere near as kind of punchy and kind of things as you can get from other breweries, right enough, but still cool to try another Finnish beer for me, and I think this is a nice sort of sessionable one. This is quite different to the other Finnish beers I've tried before. Most of them have been, you know, like beasts that you would drink one off and that's the end of your night. But yeah, definitely cool to review something a little bit different from Finland, and as I said, hopefully I can review more Finnish beers for you over the next years and months and things like that. I would love to review more Finnish beers more regularly for you here on the channel. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one then. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section, but let me know what your favourite beers are from Tornion Panimo as well. Do give me some other Finnish brewery recommendations to look at, and I'll see if there is some way to get a hold of those. But I thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out my social media, make sure you check out Tornion Panimo, and do make sure you check out Harry's blog, Reittausblogi, and Jaakko's blog, Jaskankaljat, as well. But I'll catch you guys very soon, and I hope you've enjoyed another Finnish beer review. Until the next time, Slanjo, Skull, keep peace.